to Ridecast, the podcast of the Widow's Sons Ridings chapter. Any opinions expressed in this episode do not represent those of the Widow's Sons Masonic Bikers Association UK and Ireland. You can find us on Facebook at Widow's Sons-Ridings chapter, Instagram at Widow's Sons_Ridings chapter, at our website ridings.wsmba.uk, and you can contact the show directly by emailing ridecast@hotmail.com. Right, that's the housekeeping over and done with. Kickstands up, on with the show. Hello. Welcome to Ridecast Season 1, Episode... Are we on 8? I think we're on Episode 8.
Right.
I'm your host, Yakka, and I've got my co-host with me, the usual fellas, my brothers, Gremlin.
Gremlin, live from the Kremlin.
And my other co-host is Pigpen. Hello, Pigpen.
Hello there, brothers. How are we doing?
Not good. Right, okay, so here we are then. We are now on the 15th September, so we're a little late with this recording. We're about 2 weeks late with this recording. So, in the last 6 weeks, or 4 weeks, or whenever it was we last recorded, what have we been doing? What have we been up to, guys?
There's been that much going on. I don't know where to start. Where shall we start?
Well, let me bring my notes up. I've got some notes here of all the stuff that we have done in the last 4 weeks. Right, well, I think the first thing we did was the gala, wasn't it? The Scouts, the Ultimate Gala, Scout and Guides Gala. Do you want to run that by us, Gremlin? Because you were there.
And what a fun afternoon. What a fun day it was, actually. The reason we were there was because we're a charitable organisation, and one of our former members had requested that we gave a charitable donation to the Scout or Guides for something to do with their community hut, and we were there to do a scout presentation.
Yeah. How much did we donate to them? Was it £250, wasn't it?
£250.
A small donation to help with refurbishing their Scout and Guides hut.
Yes.
And we got invited over to their gala as guests, and they said, can you come over and set your bikes up and spend the day with us and maybe do a check presentation? And we were, of course, more than happy to do that. So
we were a bit like Marmite, weren't we? Some people liked us and some people didn't. Everybody looking at the bikes loved us. The store holders next to us hated us. Because every time somebody revved the engine, they just absolutely freaked. So to those two ladies, I hope your hearing's sorted, because it wasn't a fun day for you. Yeah. No, the China was smashed everywhere.
To clarify, it wasn't us revving the engines. It was every time we lifted one of the kids onto the bikes that wanted to sit on a bike, every now and again, one of the six of us would start a bike up, and the kids, well, it wasn't just kids, was it? It was adults as well.
Yeah.
And they'd have a little blip on the throttle. Some were blipping more vigorously than others, but that's another story.
Yeah.
Most of our bikes are big V-twins, make a lot of noise, and we were making a right old racket, and it was going on for hours, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think one of the saddest moments for me was this elderly lady. Yes, probably. I mean, let's be polite. No, not an elderly lady.
Middle-aged?
Pensioner. Elderly lady. Anyway, she came up to me and she said, "Oh, my husband used to love motorbikes." And I said, "Oh, okay. Does he not ride anymore?" And she burst into tears and told me he died recently. And he was called Andrew. And I said, "My name was Andrew." She cried even more.
Yeah.
And just wanted to
make me cry as well.
You have that effect on people, don't you, Gremlin? You know, make a lot of ladies cry.
It wasn't just because you were there with you. That's all it was.
Yes.
She got emotional, and do you know what? You were really good with her. You were really good, because you put your arm around her and you were like, don't worry, you comforted her, and she was very grateful. I think the Freemasons and the Widow Sons went down really well that day, because I think, and I'm not exaggerating here, I think we were the centre of attention, because by mid-afternoon, when the gala was full of people, our little unit that we were parked up in was absolutely surrounded, wasn't it? Yeah. We were surrounded by people and kids.
It took me 3 hours to wash the bloody sticky lollipop fingers all off from the tank and everything like that. Towards the end, every time a child came towards my bike, I passed them on to Badger, saying his bike's far nicer than mine. Go and sit on that one.
Well, Cappy was there with his almost new BMW, and a kid got on his bike and scraped his shoes across his seat, and there's a big scratch across the seat, which upset him a little bit. And then there was Sack with the Intruder, the Suzuki Intruder. Twice, 2 people got on his bike and opened that throttle to the stop and held it there for what seemed like, I don't know, 10 seconds solid.
But one of the highlights of the day was a Battle of Britain flyover by a Spitfire. And unfortunately, just as the Battle of Britain Spitfire came into view and the announcer at the show got on his megaphone, this lady just revved up Sack's bike and nobody could hear a word. So everybody missed the first flyover of this Spitfire.
Yeah, they did. But oh my God, she just held it to the stop, and it was you could hear the valves bouncing inside it. And the look on Sack's face, honestly, I was dying with laughter. I felt so bad for him. And then about an hour later, a little kid got on and did the exact same thing. Anyway, you'll be glad to know I have got a video of the day, Eldwick Gala, all edited together, ready to post. So you'll be able to see that happening with the Spitfire flyby as well.
Yes. So that was fun, and it was all for a good cause.
Yeah, and we got a good photo op with the brownies came over, didn't they? The brownies came, sat on the bikes. Was it Arcala? Not Arcala. What's the boss? What's the Brown Owl? Brown Owl came along. We did a check presentation with we've got a new giant check that they use on Comic Relief style, and we got some photos. So that was good bit of publicity for us and the chapter, and Freemasonry in general, obviously, as well. So
you were diving that weekend, weren't you, Pigpen?
I was away, unfortunately, so I couldn't make it.
Because not only does our Pigpen have a love of motorbikes, he also has a diving bell.
Oh, speaking of which, I noticed you've put up a new page for your new diving business. So give it a plug, Pigpen. Give it a plug. You never know what divers might be listening.
Pigpen takes you to the depths you've never been.
He's gone quiet, bless him. He has.
Oh, yes, I know. I've set up a business testing cylinders, so that's...
and not the motorcycle-style cylinders, the air tanks, the scuba air tanks. The scuba what is it you test then, that they're holding pressure and the valves are not leaking, that sort of thing?
Yeah, basically, you're testing over-pressurising them to make sure they don't go pop.
Ah, right. So you heard it here first, folks. If you've got a leaky valve, Pigpen's the man to see about it.
That's it. I can sort your pipes out.
Yeah, so that was a good day. Right, what was next, guys? What was next? I've got the escort down here. That was an interesting day. The escort, wasn't it?
Are you getting confused with a night out?
No. The beginning of our Roslyn trip started with the escort of the big ride, Portsmouth to John O'Groats, back to Portsmouth in 4 days. There was a Masonic Widow Sons charity ride, full length of the country and back again. And as this team of riders that were raising money for charity rode through the various provinces, they were escorted by the local Widow Sons chapter. So naturally, as they came up to Yorkshire, they got in touch with the Ridings chapter. And we were very happy to escort them through Yorkshire up to the Angel of the North to meet up with Northumberland chapter. We were heading that way anyway because it was our Roslyn trip. We scheduled it to coincide with our Roslyn trip up to Scotland.
Shall we start with our morning, Pigpen? What did we do to start with?
We had an excellent morning, didn't we? We met up and we had a top-notch breakfast.
Yep, Glenn's Cafe on Tockwith Marston Trading Estate in Tockwith. Glenn, 5-star breakfast, mate.
Yeah, so there was me, Gremlin and House met up there, and then we travelled down together to the service station.
Yep, down to Skelton Lakes,
where we fueled up.
Now this is where it gets interesting. There were about 27 bikes already there. As you came to Skelton Lakes, you looked to your left, you could see the bikes. To the right was the fuel station, and the idea was that we wanted to fuel up first because when the other bikes arrived and the check presentation, we would be heading straight off. So fueled up, paid. Take it away from there, Pigpen. What happened next?
Oh, me and you drove out of the fuel station. We went to meet all the other bikers. House came out of the fuel station and set off for Edinburgh. he escorted himself.
Yeah. So we were all greeting you guys as you arrived, and we were like, where's House? And you were looking around. He was with us a minute ago. He just filled up with us, and off he went. Off he went on his own ride up to the Angel of the North.
He put in the sat nav, and off he went. He followed the sat nav. He thought we'd left him.
Yeah, Specsavers have got nothing on it. That guy needs an eye test, I tell you. If he couldn't see 27 bikes there, how he does heart operations, I have no idea.
I think he was just a bit carried away in the moment, wasn't he? But there was from the big ride. There was it must have been about 15 bikes from the big ride, and then there was another 16 of us. So it was a good turnout. We had a short break there, chance to fill up, and then we did another Czech presentation. That one was to, what was that? It was the Mark Master Mason's Benevolent.
It was for the 2022 festival. So Cleveland Whitehead Trust,
and that was a £500 check. That was a decent amount that time.
It was. But then we had another incident once we set off. The idea was that some of the riders had decided that they couldn't be asked getting up early, couldn't be bothered with the Czech presentation, didn't want to ride south, so they'd meet us at just somewhere near Wetherby Services. And so the idea was that I'd arranged for them to be at a specific place just off the roundabout. And I sent a message to say, on our way, they're in 5. So coming towards Wetherby Services, I pulled off like I was supposed to do, went to the meeting place, nobody there. So rather than being a typical oaf and riding straight back to see the rest of the riders, I hung around like I should have done. You set a time, you expect people to be there. 15 minutes later, I suddenly thought, this isn't going to plan. And it transpires that they'd got my message, decided to wait on the slip road heading down to the A1. And when they saw the bikes coming along, they just joined the motorway, little realizing that, the plan that I'd arranged, they decided to not do anything.
Ignore. Yeah. So you were waiting on the top of the bridge there on the roundabout.
I was.
And they were already
cooked onto the back of us. Yeah.
And
who was one of those riders, Gremlin?
Buzz.
And who was the other?
My wife.
And can I say
communication in your family then?
When we set off from Skelton Lake Services, the big ride team, they took the lead, and oh my God, they shot off. They were riding fast.
They were doing about 85.
They were well, like we can't say how fast they were going because we don't know.
That was the age of the guy in front of me was 85, I meant to say.
But needless to say, the guys further down the convoy, when you get past 10, 12, 15, 20 riders back, the guys further back have to just go that little bit faster to keep up because obviously they have to wait for overtakes to emerge. And anyway, needless to say, there were some guys at the back that were really having to press on to keep up. It was a crazy old ride. But anyway, we made it to the Angel of the North, didn't we?
Yes.
It was a good ride. Did we? The weather. Well, we did.
In one group.
In a roundabout fashion.
Yeah, more or less. Can
you believe? Well, now this is the irony. Because I'd hung around at Wetherby Services for 15 minutes, I was last by miles. Who arrived at Angel of the North first? Me! And you know why?
We missed our exit, didn't we?
You did, because they had supposed to be meeting. I'd heard that the plan was fuel up at Washington Services. I got to Washington Services. By that time, I caught up with my wife. And so we went together to Washington Services. There was another couple of riders there from Northumberland chapter wanting to know where all the rest of the riders were. And I said, well, I was last, so they must have already gone through. So we then set off. They took us to Angel of the North, and there was nobody there, apart from the escort going to take them up to Edinburgh. And what had happened was they'd gone to Durham Services by mistake. And then some of them found their way to the Angel of the North, some of them didn't. And it was just a bit of a fiasco, really, to start with.
Well, there was some roadworks going on in that area, and whoever was at the very front, I think it was Brother Trevor, was leading, and he hadn't taken the correct turn off. Then we got mixed up in some roadworks. We looped back round. We made our way back. We found our way there in the end.
Well, Rufio didn't.
Oh, no, Rufio ended up... Where did we hook up with Rufio?
At lunch, 3 hours later.
Was it? Okay, yeah. Yeah. Oh, that was at the last cafe in
No, the last cafe was on the A1. No, it was the other one. Was the one just before? Well, I can't remember what it was called. When I booked my own picnic.
Right. Oh, yes. Yeah, I remember. But anyway, so we hooked up at the Angel of the North with Northumberland chapter. So the national chairman, Peter Younger, was there with all of his chapter. George Young, is it? George was there. And all the Northumberland chaps, and we had a good break there. We were probably stopped there for a good 40 minutes, 45 minutes. There was a little tea wagon. We had coffees and muffins and all the rest.
Angel of the North, get some toilets.
Yeah, it needs some toilets there, doesn't it? Vicky did a load more filming. So we've done another video there of the Big Ride Escort. That's already on the Facebook page. So listeners, go to the Riding's Chapter Facebook page. Have a little scroll through, you will find a video called The Big Ride Escort, and you can watch the video of what we have just described to you, the crazy ride up to the Angel of the North.
Yes.
And then they all rode away, didn't they? All the Northumberland chapter. And then it was one of the Northumberland guys decided to take us on a ride through a mystery ride through the outskirts of Newcastle to the centre, because he said, "Oh, you don't want to go that way." And I think he sort of got us lost, but he took us in the right direction. Then we headed up the A79, A78, well, whichever way it was, towards the middle of the country for the most beautiful, scenic ride I have ridden in a long time. Up to Jedburgh and through Jedburgh, wasn't it? Beautiful.
And had a nice view of the Coccyx all the way.
And it stayed dry for us on that journey up, but that was about it, really, wasn't it? The rest of the weekend poured down.
It did.
Well, it wasn't too bad when we were at Roslyn and around there. There's a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, when we actually got to Roslyn Chapel and wandered around, it stayed dry, didn't it? It was just the next day. Oh, can I just point out that during that entire ride that we've just described, Pigpen was riding side saddle.
Oh yes, broken coccyx. I doff my cap, sir. A man with a sore arse riding all that way.
It did sting.
Well, there was a moment at which when we were at Skelton Lake Services, we got the big checkout to do a photograph, and Pigpen took hold of one side of the check, I took the other side, and I kneeled down so that I was in front of everyone looking at the camera holding the check. Pigpen kneeled down the other side, and the noise that came out of his mouth as he kneeled down, he sounded like a stuck pig himself. He was clearly in his mouth.
It was a painful ride, was that?
Yeah, so, he did well.
Let's not make light of it. When you imagine your coccyx is your backbone or part of your backbone.
Your tailbone, isn't it?
Yeah. I've been called spineless a few times, but I do have a coccyx. Now, you rode with a broken back. I mean, this is a man that's made of, well, what can I say? Special forces guy here.
Tough as boot leather. Yeah. Tough as boot leather.
Andy McNabb will be doing a book about him next.
Yeah, Bravo 20. The one that got away.
It was a good ride. It was a good ride up. It was
side saddle.
Yeah, but
does the mighty Honda have a comfortable saddle?
No, actually.
No, they don't. But we had 16 bikes in that ride, in that convoy, and as you know, those roads we were on are very hilly, very twisty, and there were some great moments because obviously when you're using the drop-off system, you're shifting through the group, and at some point you are at the back, and when you're looking along that convoy and see a staggered formation of 16 bikes off into the distance going up a hill, wow, what a view! It's a great view. You'll have seen us all in your rear view mirrors, Gremlin, because you were leading the entire length of the journey. So again, well done to Gremlin for leading us.
We had some nice photo opportunities. We stopped on the border between England and Scotland, which was a nice little photo opportunity. And it was just a really relaxed ride up. It was just actually nice. I did get lost once because I was operating a sat-nav Garmin and sat-nav Google Maps. What I didn't realize was, and I don't have gloves that are screen or touch sensitive, that I'd set in wayfinding points. And as soon as you get to your wayfinding point, you need to tap on to the next. So I got stuck in one place. I thought, what do I do now? So I had to switch to the Garmin sat-nav, which was taking me a different way from my other sat-nav. But we got there, and it was quite a nice little road. We went down one road that was blocked off, didn't we?
Was that when we came off a motorway, off a slip road, got to the top, and then came back down the other side, back onto the same motorway?
Yes.
We were like, what on earth is going on here?
Oh, no. We ended up going through like a housing estate, didn't we, at one stage?
Yeah.
But we got there, and
we made it.
We did. And if anybody's wanting to go to Scotland, take that route up. It was Kelso heading to
Jedburgh, wasn't it?
Jedburgh.
And then
absolutely beautiful. And think about staying in the little village of Roslyn. Fantastic hotel. We stayed in the original Roslyn Inn. There was opposite. We stayed in the place opposite as well. So we'd taken all the hotel accommodation in Roslyn for that Saturday or that Friday night, and we were treated really well. The staff couldn't do enough for us. The food service was brilliant. It got a bit raucous later on, but apart from that, it was brilliant. Oh, and we did have one incident. One of our members, Alien, good evening to you, and Janet, has just taken delivery of a brand new Harley-Davidson CVO Limited Ultra or something like that. Beautiful bike. Dropped it as soon as we got to Edinburgh.
Oh no!
Or Roslyn.
No, we just on the crash bars, just a little scratch on the crash bars. That's what they're there for.
I'd have been gutted.
But we also
very good about it.
But we also crashed, did it? We didn't crash. He just stopped and couldn't hold the weight.
He laid it down gently, which is what he does with most of his bikes. To be fair, he likes to lay them. He doesn't use side stand. He just lays them down on the crash bars.
It took 3 of us to pick it up, I have to say.
Did it? Oh my god! And then we popped over the road to a local lodge in Roslyn, didn't we? I forget what it was called now. Was it St. Clair Lodge or something like that?
Yeah, Lodge 606.
It was.
Was it the St. Clair Lodge? Was that right?
St. Clair Lodge 606.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we popped over there, and there were a few brothers in there. It looked like they were refurbishing, painting, doing something in there. So they were happy to see all the widow sons trotting in, and we had a little look around their lodge, and that was nice. Took some photos there. And then obviously we went to the chapel itself.
Take me to the chapel. Yes, to Roslyn Chapel.
I'd never been before. I think you two have both been before, haven't you?
I've never been.
Yeah, I've been before.
Sorry. I thought I was going to say I knew Yakka had, but I thought you might have been the
no
the high up mason that you are, sir.
I've been there plenty of times watching the Da Vinci Code, and do you know what? I walked through there thinking I was Tom Hanks, Dr. Robert Langdon. There you go.
Do you know what? Do you know when we were in there, we were having a little wander around, and then the lady that one of the employees there said, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to take a seat. And she did a short lecture on the history and talked about it used to be called the Green Chapel because it was all mouldy and algae and whatever growing on the interior because it got all derelict and damp. And she did the whole history of it. It was really interesting. It was just owned by the Sinclair family, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it survived the ransacking that Henry VIII did.
And Oliver Cromwell.
That's right, yeah.
As well.
Anyway, it was refurbished. One of the local charities took over and looked after it and tried to refurbish it. And then as soon as it appeared in the Da Vinci movies, then lots more visitors, lots more money coming in, and they really have brought it back to its former glory now, haven't they?
I think the numbers went. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it went from something like 5,000 a year to 17,000 visitors.
No, it was way more than that. It was something like they had 20,000 a year, and it went up to 150,000 a year. Something like that.
I was going to say it was 140,000. I think you said 150,000. It went to from, like you say, ridiculous, like 4,000 or something.
Yeah. Yeah, very impressive.
But it was funny. They were doing a little story when they mentioned one of the sculptures on the wall was the weeping widow, the mother of Hiram Abith, the original widow's son. And then we all stood up with our widow son's patches, and I think she was a bit shocked. I didn't think she understood what was going on, but we've got the big widow son's squares, a lot of us.
Yeah. Well, some of us.
And then, some of us. And then there was the Enter the Apprentice pillar, and there was the story about the Master Mason and the Enter the Apprentice, which I won't spoil the story. You should go to Roslyn and hear that story.
I heard some guy, obviously wasn't a Mason, was talking about the cable of tow or something, whatever that was.
Cable of tow. And she pointed out the steps that led down to the crypt that was used in the Da Vinci Code movie. And did you notice the mark just above the staircase as you're walking down?
The Hollywood Circle.
That's right, the Hollywood Circle, where the film crew would put. What did they put up there? They put a square and compass there or something. They put something.
No, it was the pentangle, I think, or something like that. It was a symbol.
And it was fake, so it was taken down after the filming, but it left a mark on the wall, and they call it the Hollywood Circle now, don't they?
It did. It did indeed. Anyway, a little bit disappointed. I was convinced because I'd organised a trip, and the owner of the original Roslyn Inn that put me in the main master bedroom there, 4-poster bed, and I was convinced that's where Tom Hanks had stayed. Well, I was wrong. He stayed in Edinburgh.
Did he? Oh, well.
Yeah, but to be fair, though, you are a bit of a Tom Hanks, aren't you?
And what can I just mention? If anyone's been to Roslyn, they'll know I speak the truth here. It is forbidden to take photographs inside the chapel. They do not allow any. If you get your camera out there, they jump on you. They're like, no photographs, no photographs. I think they want to sell the postcards in the shop, don't they?
Yep.
But anyway, Tess and Vicky had a word with the curator and said, we have a group of Freemasons here, widows' sons of the Masonic biking, fraternity. And being that there's a massive Masonic link to this chapel, would it be okay if we had a photograph inside the chapel? Well, she didn't give us a photo inside the chapel, but the initial entrance, there's a small vestibule, isn't there? I think is that the right word for it? A vestibule?
Yeah.
And they allowed us to take a photograph from outside, looking in through the door, and we were all inside the vestibule. So for all intents and purposes, we were in the chapel and had a photograph of us in the chapel.
Yes,
you couldn't see a lot of the interior though in the photo, but there you go. That's got to be unique. That.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. No.
So that was the Saturday daytime, wasn't it? And then what happened on the Saturday night?
Well, no, we did. We went our separate ways.
That's right.
Pigpen with his broken coccyx, House and Buzz waved us goodbye as they headed back to England. And
How was the weather? How was the weather on the way down, Pigpen?
Moist.
Yeah.
Very moist.
Did you crack on?
I got the boys to the A1
and then you waved
Berwick.
goodbye.
Yeah, and it was quite a steady ride to Berwick, and I thought this is going to be a long wet ride home. So I said, right, follow the A1 and come off at Knaresborough. I'll see you later, boys. And then
warp speed, Mr. Sulu.
I made good time and got home.
Good man, good man.
7 hours before House, apparently.
It was. I think I'd done 2 hours work when he popped on Messenger that it was just in Harrogate getting some fuel.
He took it very steady, apparently.
He did.
Right. Well, it was raining quite.
Yeah, but don't forget, it was on a brand spanking new bike. He'd only got it about a fortnight before, a week before.
Yes. So it did absolutely right taking it steady. I think Buzz stayed with him for a little bit, then got bored and went off on his merry way.
Yeah,
but then we headed down to Northumberland, didn't we? That was the sort of second part of the trip. A
couple of incidents on that trip as well. There were a couple of incidents at roundabouts when a bit of fishtailing going on by some of the members, and it seemed like there'd been a bit of a diesel spillage, and we were coming towards a particular roundabout, and all the traffic had stopped. And most drivers are really considerate, and when they see bikes coming, they will move across to the left. Well, one guy decided that he would park diagonally across the carriageway to prevent us from going. And so I revved my engine a couple of times and he got out of his car, and he was a big that's all I can say. Do you think we might have to edit that? He was a big guy. And he came towards me, shouting his head off. Then he looked behind and saw, I think it was Tess was behind me. Then looked behind Tess and saw 13 more bikes riding down. And he ran back into his car.
I don't blame him.
Yeah, and what had happened was the police were at the other side of the roundabout and they were cleaning up a diesel spillage. So something had been slopping a load of diesel out everywhere, which was, obviously for bikes is extremend dangerous.
Yeah, we'd been following a wagon that had been dumping diesel on every roundabout we came to, because I know I had a couple of back-end fishtails. I know Tess had a couple, Trip did. There was quite a few of us that had a few scary moments multiple times on those roundabouts. So no fun when the back end of your bike steps out.
No. We don't like your back end stepping out, do we? Anyway, we made it safely. We stopped at the last cafe. Was it the last cafe in Scotland or the first cafe in England? I can't remember.
No, that was on the way up. That was on the way up, the last cafe in England.
Oh, I can't remember wherever it was we stayed at. First and last it was called, I think, something like that. Anyway, so we ended up having refreshments there and then headed to the hotel.
It was a wet ride down, wasn't it? It was a wet ride down.
Yeah, very wet ride. And pleasant evening. And then Sunday we made
What was the name of the hotel we stopped at? Was it the Purdy Lodge, right on the side of the motorway?
Purdy Lodge.
Yeah, that was good. Food was good in there. We had a really nice sort of festive board style bite to eat with everyone that evening. Good fun. Yeah. But by the Sunday morning, we had breakfast and we were all a bit fed up, really. We'd had that much rain. Yeah. I think everyone just wanted to go home. A couple of the riders, 2 or 3 of the guys decided to go to Holy Island, which was about, 10 miles away.
And they ended up staying all day there because they had a breakdown. One of the bikes, the breakdown was the clutch cable, clutch lever,
right.
Clutch. Yes.
Clutch cable snapped.
Yeah,
sack. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the rest of us made our way home, basically, didn't we?
And the down rain until we got to the south of. It was Washington Services when the sun. Well, it was actually dry there, but the sun came out just north of Newcastle. But it was miserable because I didn't take the opportunity to put my waterproofs on. The sensible ones did.
It was a complete reversal to London. London was hot, super sunny, humid, too warm. Too dry, and Scotland was just wet all weekend, apart from the ride out. But anyway, you take it as it comes. Part of being a biker, you've got to ride in the rain occasionally.
But you know what? From a point of view of being on a bike, having the elements thrown at you, you get on and do it. You know, you just adapt your riding technique to the conditions around you. And you know, I was not sensible because I didn't put my waterproofs on, and I should have done. I had an opportunity, and I thought, well, it's not that bad, and I paid the price for it.
Okay, so that was the Roslyn trip. The next thing that we did the following weekend was Barry Orr's paella party. We call him Grandpa. He's the oldest member in the chapter, probably in the association. I think he's 92 now. Still rides. He rides a Spider now, a 3-wheeler bike.
Well, the make of it is a Can-Am Spider, isn't it?
Is that what it is? Oh, right.
I think that's what it is. Yeah.
So anyway, so he does ride it. He's coming on the Ride to the Wall, by the way, next month. So
excellent.
So we'll see him on that. But anyway, Barry organised a paella party. He did it 2 or 3 years ago before the pandemic. We went over for some nice paella in his back garden. He's got a fantastic collection of motorcycles and cars, and he had all his garages open for us to look around. But there was also a contingent of members from the Coccyx on the Squares, which is the Masonic Vintage Car Owners Club. So we got to chat with other Masonic petrol heads, much like ourselves. I think there were about 23 or 24 members and partners of the Widow's Sons there. There's about 8 or 9 of the Coccyx there. And it was just a great afternoon. We had a bite to eat. We had a good old chat, looked around the bike collection. And Barry had a collection go in there. He had a little bucket collecting money for charity that raised £200, and at the end of the day he said, by the way, this is for the Riding's chapter charity pot. So that was very, very kind of him. £200 for our charity pot. So what we decided to do is we put £100 of the chapter's charity money, so that £300 donation, and we asked Barry to come up with a worthy cause close to his heart that he would like to propose for the donation, and he came up with St. Luke's Hospice in Sheffield. And that ballot went through without a hitch, and £300 has been donated to that charity. So a good weekend all in all. Great fun, and £300 to charity.
Yeah, well done.
By the way, he's got another bike for his collection there. There was what I can't remember what it was. I think it was possibly another BSA, but he had it hiding down in the garage. You know where the Corvette Stingray is?
Yeah.
He had it hiding down in that garage under a sheet because he hasn't told Margaret yet. On to the next segment in this episode. So we've decided, the 3 of us, that we're going to do a segment each over the next 3 episodes on our favourite famous motorcyclist. I don't know what the other 2 guys are doing, but this episode I am going to.
We don't either.
You haven't chosen yet. I am going to do the most famous motorcycle that there ever was. If you were alive in the 70s, you will have known this guy. He was as famous as Elvis, and he wore a jumpsuit and a cape, just like Elvis did. He was a cultural icon. I'm going to get straight into it. my selection for the most famous biker in the world is Evel Knievel. Yay!
Rev Evel.
Okay, so let me give you a rundown on the early years of Evel Knievel. Real name...
Was he ever known as Dr. Evil?
Dr. Evil, $1 million. Right.
Or am I wrong? Is it a different Dr. Evil?
Different Dr. It's spelt Evel, by the way. Right, okay, so let me get started then. Robert Craig Knievel was his real name. Born 17th of October 1938 in a small town called Butte in Montana. Knievel, any ideas of the origin of the surname Knievel? Any guesses?
Sasquatchian Indian.
No, he was of German origin. His great-great-grandparents emigrated from Germany, so Knievel's German.
Adolf Knievel.
He had a younger brother called Nicholas. His parents divorced and left when Evel was 2 years old. They separated and both left Butte, went separate ways. So Evel was left back at Butte and raised by his grandparents. Now, when Evel was 8 years old, he attended a traveling auto daredevil show, which he says set him on his path to becoming a motorcycle daredevil. He left school at 15 years old and got a job in the local copper mines as a diamond drill operator, but eventually got promoted to surface duty, where he drove, those giant earth mover wagon things? He drove one of those, which he learned how to pop motorcycle style wheelies, which was his little party piece, popping wheelies on a giant earth mover. But on one occasion, he lost control and crashed into some power lines, which cut the power in the city for several hours and got him the sack. So obviously having a bit of a thrill-seeking demeanor and being a bit of an adrenaline junkie, he took part in some odd hobbies as he was growing up. During his teenage years, he took part in rodeos and ski jumping. I can't imagine where in Montana you would go ski jumping, but there you go.
Do you know Hannah?
Hannah, Montana? Mm-hmm. He had a short stint in the army, came back to Butte after that, and he then started an ice hockey team, random. They were called the Butte Bombers, but that didn't pay very well. And as he was now married to his young wife, they had a child, he needed to make more money. So he was always on the lookout as to how he could make more money. This is the part where I tell you where he got the nickname Evel, and it's the most bizarre story that it sounds totally made up, but trust me when I tell you, I've checked multiple sources and this is a true story. So in his early 20s, he was a bit of a hellraiser. He liked to drink and would regularly get involved in barroom brawls and thrown into the local jail cells. On one occasion, he was in the cells, sobering up overnight, and the guy in the cell next door to his was a chap by the name of Arthur Knorfel. So the custody sergeant decided to nickname them Awful Knorfel and Evel Knievel. And apparently that is a true story. Okay, so over the next few years, he got various jobs, one of which was an elk hunting guide.
Okay.
He was a motocross racer, he was an insurance salesman, and he even opened his own Honda dealers, which eventually closed due to tough competition in the area.
Was it called the Mighty Honda dealership?
The Mighty Honda dealership, yeah. So then eventually he got into his stunt career. So let me just run through this stunt career of his and how he started this. So after enticing a small crowd to a self-organized and self-promoted stunt show, featuring a few wheelies and a short jump over a box of rattlesnakes. That was on a Honda 250. Evel managed to get sponsorship from a local Norton dealers, and they provided him with a bike, which was I believe it was a 750 Norton, not ideal for doing bike stunts and jumps. But on January the 3rd, 1966, Evel Knievel and his motorcycle daredevils was born. It was basically him and a couple of his mates who were bikers, and they put a little show together, popping wheelies and doing little jumps. After a few shows, one of which he was quite badly injured, what the stunt he was doing was he'd have his mate fly towards him flat out, and he'd basically jump spread-eagled over the top of the bike that, between his legs. Anyway, you can imagine where it went wrong. The guy collided with Evel's groin, sent him 15 foot in the air, and he was in hospital for a month. Anyway, by the time he recovered and came out of hospital, his two buddies had disappeared, got a job. They were like, there's no money in this. So that meant that Evel was now a solo traveling show, and he went town to town, and that's when he started doing the car jumps. He had ramps, a wagon with ramps in. He'd set the ramps up, pull a car in, start jumping the cars, and this was actually quite popular. This got the crowds out watching him, probably to watch him crash, to be fair, but he was successfully jumping cars, which was a bit unusual. No other daredevils, stunt bikers were jumping cars at the time. But obviously, every time he successfully jumped a car, they would demand that he added another car on, and it got more and more and more. He got up to 12 cars plus a cargo van and landed badly, severely breaking an arm and ribs, but it got him tons of publicity. So obviously the sensationalist crash aspect of it was what attracted the punters. On the 25th of March 1967 at Ascot Park, California, he cleared 15 cars, which was apparently a record at the time. The distance was a record.
Now, are those cars bumper to bonnet?
They're door to door, widthways. Yeah. He was on a Triumph Bonneville 650 at this point, so still not on the Harleys yet. On the 28th of July at Graham, Washington, he repeated the 15-car stunt, but crashed badly, giving him a bad concussion. He returned a month later to the same show to complete the show and prove that he could jump the 15 cars. Crashed again. This time he broke his wrist, right knee, and 2 ribs. He got his first national exposure on television on the Joey Bishop Show in March 68. So now he's becoming more and more famous. And the first of the really big televised jumps, the one that he got really famous for, you probably heard of it, is the Caesars Palace Fountains jump, December 31st, New Year's Eve, 1967. He actually conned his way into that jump by getting he himself and getting friends to call the CEO of the casino to ask about the jump that was going on, Evel Knievel, Daredevil jump. He got guys calling up, pretending they were TV studios, wanting to televise it. Anyway, it conned the CEO and he agreed to let Evel do the jump. I don't know if you've seen the video, guys, but He claims that the bike lost power on takeoff, which meant his landing was short. He crashed quite badly and slid into a car park next door. I think it was June's Casino. He crushed his pelvis, broke his femur, fractured his hip, wrist, both ankles, and had another concussion, but it was the longest jump attempt. It was a failed attempt, obviously, at 141 feet. And as I say, that was on a Triumph 650. That's a big, heavy bike to be jumping that sort of distance. But this one made him super famous because, he sold the film rights to ABC, who televised it, and made him a lot of money, got him a lot of exposure.
Now, I heard there was a story that he went into the casino and gambled his last $100 and lost.
Yes, apparently that's true. But he went ahead and did the jump anyway and crashed.
And crashed.
Badly. Yeah. So the next,
if there's ever an omen to go ahead.
Yeah. So the next big jump he did was the Snake River Canyon jump on the 8th of September 74. He originally wanted to jump the Grand Canyon, but he couldn't get permission from the US government to jump the Grand Canyon. Not sure why. Is it because it's like a national monument or something? They wouldn't let him attempt.
He probably thought he was going to kill himself.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, on a helicopter ride, he saw this gorge below him and decided, that's it, that's what I'm going to jump, the Snake River Canyon. This one was broadcast in theatres all over the USA at 3:36 p.m. He was in a steam-powered rocket he called the Sky Cycle.
Did Sir Clive Sinclair build that for him? Was it before the C5?
A long time before the C5. So this was powered by superheated steam. Heated it up to 500 degrees Fahrenheit, propelling the rocket to over 300 miles per hour. Must have been an absolute maniac. Unfortunately, the landing parachute deployed early, causing the rocket to drag and decelerate quickly. He actually cleared the gorge, but then the wind took him back over to the side of the gorge that he started on, and he landed.
We know what bad wind does, don't we?
He always said, though, he did it.
Yeah, there were people that thought that he had deployed that parachute because he panicked and decided, changed his mind halfway through. But he said he was very lucky that he didn't land in the river because he couldn't release his harness. And if he had landed in the river, he probably would have drowned because he couldn't get out of his harness. He ended up on that one with just a broken nose. So that was his least injuries he gained from a jump.
It'd have been better having a brown suit, wouldn't he, rather than a white one?
Oh, yeah. He sold the TV rights for that, plus 100,000 tickets to spectators that were there on the day. So he made a fortune on that one. And then the next big jump I've got him down for is the Wembley jump, Wembley Stadium in London. And this jump was on an HD, now a Harley Davidson XR750, the famous Harley that he used for his jumps. So after Snake River, Evel had several more of his jumps televised by ABC's World of Sport. So they were televising all of his jumps, and he was making a tidy profit. At this point, they say he was probably getting, pretty much a millionaire from his jump career. On May the 26th, 1975, in front of 90,000 spectators at Wembley Stadium, Evel attempted to jump 13 London buses. And
now you say attempted. That sounds like it didn't happen.
He didn't make it, unfortunately. Now, a lot of people think they were double-deckers. They weren't double-deckers. They were single-decker London buses. But yes, you're right. He was unsuccessful. He crashed badly, breaking his pelvis. But after the jump and the crash, he addressed the audience saying, and this is verbatim, "Ladies and gentlemen of this wonderful country, you are the last people in the world who will ever see me jump, because I will never, ever, ever, ever jump again. I'm through." And he refused the stretcher, saying, "I came in walking, I went out walking."
And that was his
retirement. No. October the 25th, 75, he came out of retirement.
Hang on a second. Hang on. What day of the month did he, and what month did he go into retirement?
In May 75, he tried it and failed, went into retirement.
And then the Kings Island jump was October 75.
Wow.
So 6 months later, he was in Cincinnati, Ohio, and he successfully jumped 14 Greyhound buses. So he came out of retirement, jumped 14 Greyhound buses, landed successfully. It was a record for a jump on a Harley, successfully landed for the next 24 years. It was 133 feet. That one. It was his longest successful jump of his career. And
was that it?
Knievel again announced his retirement. So the next jump he did. No, he did continue to do a few more jumps, but at this point they were much shorter jumps. They were exhibition jumps. So he jumped 7 or 8 buses or 7 or 8 cars, less dangerous jumps that he could manage without injuring himself for the next couple of years. But then he began limiting his appearances to support his son, Robbie Knievel, who was an up-and-coming stunt rider following his father's footsteps. So he didn't jump at this point. He'd just come on, maybe pop a couple of wheelies and give a speech to help his son out. His final tour appearance was March 1981. And there's a couple of things I want to tell you about. He had an anti-drug campaign. He was very much against drugs. And before every jump, he would tell kids, "Don't do drugs, kids." And he also promoted the use of crash helmets. He told motorcyclists to wear crash helmets, because back in the 70s in America, for definite, crash helmets weren't a legal requirement, but he was always advocating that motorcyclists wear crash helmets.
Did he ever get into a fight with any Hells Angels? I heard a little story about a Hells Angel throwing a tyre iron, and him and his entourage jumped to them all.
That's right, and a few of them got hospitalised, didn't they? A few of the Hells. Yeah. That's one of the reasons why he spelt his name Evel, E-V-E-L. He didn't want the negative connotation of E-V-I-L, and that was apparently something to do with the Hells Angels as well. So I'm not sure. So we had a couple of run-ins with the Hells Angels. Over his career, he had several documentaries and movies made about him. George Hamilton played him in one of the Evel Knievel movies. He died on November the 30th, 2007, aged only 69, from pulmonary fibrosis, whatever that is. I'll have to ask House what that is.
That sounds a luggy-type disease.
You think so?
Yes.
Do you know Matthew McConaughey gave his eulogy at his funeral?
Why?
I don't know. I guess Matthew McConaughey was probably a fan of his, maybe.
Wow.
So, there's tons and tons of info on him on Wikipedia. Too much to do in one of our episodes. But
how much money did he make?
I've no idea.
Do we know?
No idea. But he was a millionaire, wasn't he? At one point, I think he blew all his money towards the end of his life. He walked around with a walking stick from the age of about 30 years old, because he'd broken that many bones. I think the rumour has it that he broke every bone in his body over the course of his 15-year career. Who had the toy? Who had the Evel Knievel wind-up motorbike? I had one of those.
The wind-up bike.
I always wanted one.
The red box thing, and used to wind it up and press the button, off he went.
I mean, all that gear, all that merchandise and toys and all that sort of stuff he licensed, he must have made a fortune out of that. So, but yeah, what a legend. He was the Elvis of the motorcycle world. He was the Bruce Lee of the motorcycle world, and he was a legend. And his son, Robbie, continued his legacy, jumping for years and years afterward. But Robbie was jumping on Japanese motocross bikes with decent suspension. He wasn't jumping on quarter of a ton's worth of Harley Davidson. I mean, that's why most of his jumps failed, because he was using road bikes with no travel suspension.
You were a bit slow there, Pigpen. I thought you commented the fact that most of his jumps failed because he was on a Harley Davidson. Here he goes. People made money out of him. It says between 72 and 77. During 6 years, the toys were manufactured. Ideal claimed to have sold more than $125 million worth of Knievel toys.
Really?
And that was in the 70s. What would that be now?
Good God.
Quite a bit more.
3-4 times that. I wonder how much of that he actually got.
God.
Amazing.
Not bad.
So there you go. So guys, listeners, if you want to check that out on YouTube, just type in Evel Knievel compilation, or type in the Snake River, or the Caesar's Palace, Wembley. Yeah, there's loads of them on. You can watch them all. And now it's time for Email Corner. Email Corner time. We have some messages and missives from the listeners. Who wants to start?
Well, I think if Pigpen's got a handful, he needs to start first.
I've got one here. I think it's directed at, well, it's definitely you, Gremlin, and possibly Yakka. To Ridecast. Do you guys rehearse? Because it doesn't sound like you do.
Who's that from?
That's from the Podjacker.
Podjacker.
Podjacker. Oh, I don't think they do. No. So
no, we don't.
Podjacker. Right. It would ruin it if we rehearsed.
Yeah, no, we don't rehearse. We just wing it. We make it up as we're going along.
Yeah.
Sounds the best.
Yeah. Podcaster. No, Podjacker.
Podjacker, yeah.
Podjacker. Sounds like
do you know what? Sounds like boring knacker if you ask me with that one. Anyway.
Oh, I think you've heard Gremlin's feelings there.
Anyway, dear Ridecast, why do so many of the men in your club wear a So Mote It Be patch, and what does it mean? And that's Ride Safe, and that's from Rachel. Well, Rachel, if you are a Freemason, you are entitled to wear certain patches on your cuts, and one of the patches is, as you rightly pointed out, So Mote It Be. And So Mote It Be is really a bit like saying Amen at the end of a prayer, or so goes it.
Yeah.
And that's really what it stands for. But in Freemasonry, during our, ceremonies, we say So Mote It Be rather than Amen at the end of the prayers.
Yeah, it's a Masonic phrase that we wear as a patch. Doesn't really mean anything.
It does. It means Amen.
It means so must it be.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Right, I'll do one. What have I got? Dear Gremlin, Yakka and Pigpen, I'm very proud to say that my first bike was the legendary Cagiva Mito. What were your first bikes, and what did you pass your test on? And that's from Stephen. Now, Cagiva Mito, do you know what that is, Pigpen?
No.
No, it's the little 125 learner legal bike that it was copied off the 916. Looks like a 916, but a tiny version. I guess if you're 17 years old, that's like the Fireblade with L plates. Right. My first bike. I had a little puck moped. So my first proper bike was a Suzuki GP100, and it was awesome.
What did you pass your test on?
I passed my test on a Honda CG125 at a training school. I rented it for the test. A little 4-stroke Honda CG125. What about you, Pigpen? Was it steam powered, the one you passed your test on?
Ooh, cheek. Bit of cheek, eh? Clever. No, it wasn't. I think the first bike was a DT100 when I was 6 or 7. And it was bought out of a paper in Harrogate that used to be called.
That's a fast bike for a 6-year-old.
Yeah. I had that on the farm, and then I had every description of bike after that, whatever I could sort of get my hands on.
What did you pass your test on?
Well, I turned up to take my test on a GSXR 750 and then promptly got told off.
Did it have L plates on it?
No. I just turned up on my road bike.
See, the funny thing is, to us, that sounds funny, but to listeners taking their test nowadays, you can turn up on a GSXR 750 to take your test, can't you? If you're doing direct access, you can put L plates on a big bike and take your test.
I got told off, and he made me take my bike back home and walk down to his house and get, I don't even know what it was. It was something 125. And yeah, I ended up sort of doing the bit in the playground with two other lads. One of them fell off in the playground. He packed up and went home. So me and the other lad carried on. And then we went out on the roads to do the final assessment thing. And he ploughed into the back end of a car. So he went home. So it wasn't a good day for them two. I went back home and got my GSXR out and off I went.
What about you, Grosvenor?
Well, my first bike in my 20s was a Suzuki ER125. Anyway, I didn't own it for very long. I think I got a girlfriend and
now it's changed then, has it?
And I picked up back in my 50s, I think. Yeah, I was 50.
Late 60s.
Early 50s when I took my test. And that was on a Phaser 650, the same one that I dropped on my foot and broke it in 3 places. I didn't hold it against the bike.
Do they make a 650 of them, Pigpen? They're a 600, I thought.
Was it a 600?
600,
yeah.
Yeah.
Or the 1,000, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, and that's what I passed my test on.
So there you go. That was Stephen. There you go, Stephen. Hope that answers your question. Who's got something?
Well, it's obviously Pigpen if he's got a handful. Hey, we'll save that
I have another. Right, hello Ridecast. I am a 45-year-old sports bike rider. Currently own a VFR 800, another mighty Honda rider, who is considering finally making the switch to a cruiser motorcycle.
Hey! Even, my kind of rider.
The only problem is I'm finding it difficult to pull the trigger. Did you guys feel the same way when your time came? Keep casting, and that's from Mike.
I did. I struggled to go to a cruiser because to me that was giving up. It was pipe and slipper time. Old man's bike is a cruiser. I did it in gradual stages. I went from ZX9 Ninja to the 1200 GS, the BMW adventure bike, and then to a cruiser. So I did it in stages. It was a bit easier to cope with. But I know what you mean by finding it difficult to pull the trigger because it is a big step off a sports bike onto a cruiser.
Now, once I passed my test, I got a Harley-Davidson Sportster. Would you class that as a cruiser or a sports bike?
Yeah.
It's certainly a sports bike.
I would say, what was this guy's name again?
Stephen.
Mike.
Oh,
no, that
Mike.
was Mike. Stephen was the last one. Mike, you're on a VFR 800, mate. You're nearly there. You're almost there if you're on a VFR 800. You're on a V4. Just take two of the cylinders out and you'll be on a V-twin. Lovely.
Yeah. 45 years old, you need to be on a cruiser, mate. I tell you, go for it. Yeah, the best decision you've ever done. Pigpen, what about you? What about you? You both, you ride both, don't you?
I can't pull the trigger fully and commit to the cruiser lifestyle.
But your mighty Honda.
I've got the mighty Honda cruiser.
Yeah.
I've still got the ZX9 and GSXR. Yes, I still like to step back and
get back on the fast bikes.
Get back and do a bit of scraping.
Do you know what you're scraping? Do you know what you look cooler on though? You look coolest on your Honda.
Well, yeah, but
you can be my easy rider any day on that.
Do you know
Honda.
what? He rides that. Let's be fair. He rides that VTX like it's a sports bike, doesn't he? He doesn't cruise. He doesn't cruise on it, does he? He races it.
He races it. So get yourself a cruiser, Stephen. Go for it.
Mike,
pull the trigger. Oh, Mike, you get yourself a cruiser as well.
Get yourself the VTX 13 or 1800.
Yeah,
you'll love it.
Good call. Good call. Right, Gremlin, have you got anything?
Well, it's time for a Pigpen Pal. I've had an email this week from Dorothy. She says, how can I become a friend of Pigpen? Well, to be honest, Pigpen has been a friend of Dorothy for years.
Yeah!
Anyway, Dorothy. She also says, put it this way, she said, Pigpen reminds me sort of a 007. And she wants to know also about being in 00 heaven with him. Would that be possible?
Hello.
And with all the new Bond film coming out at the end of this month, there's a big section in it, I believe, which has got triumphs in it. It's a triumph scrambler. She wants to know, did Pigpen apply for the part of James Bond? Well, put it this way, Dorothy, he hasn't yet, but a little bird tells me that he may be giving it a go. Anyway, Dorothy says, how about you take some of those blue tablets, Pigpen? It may not make you James Bond, but you will certainly Roger Moore.
Oh, please tell me he's not here all week.
Don't forget to tip your waitress.
Yeah,
oh dear, Roger Moore.
Yes. She says, I love the show.
Go on.
No, she just says, I love the show.
Yeah, so on that note, on the note of Pigpen and Roger Moore,
friend of Dorothy's.
I think we'll sign off. So listen up, guys, all you listeners out there, please. So listen up, guys. If you want to send us an email that we can read out on the show, ask us a question, tell us a story.
Or even send us an email we can't read out on the show.
Yeah. Ridecast@hotmail.com. Get your emails in. Well, it's been great, guys. I've really enjoyed it.
Have you? glad one of us has.
Aye, right. Anyway, listen, we'll catch up with you all in 4 weeks' time for episode 9. I'm Yakka signing off for Ridecast.
And it's goodbye from him.
Oh, and it's goodbye from me.
Good night, guys. See you later. Catch you next month. Bye.